Let's take a look at where we're at right now. We've been on hold for quite a bit because we needed to make some changes to the plans, and the permit office takes a very long time to get anything processed. Since I last showed you, we have completed the rough electrical and rough plumbing. That means all the water lines are installed, and all the electrical wires and outlet boxes are installed. Right now, we're waiting on windows and doors to be delivered. But in the meantime, I wanted to finish sheathing the outside of the building. All the sheathing that exists already is part of the engineering structure. They are part of the shear walls that are designed to keep the building from falling over in the event of an earthquake. I want this building to be super strong because I anticipate putting some significant stress on the walls. So I'm going to sheathe the rest of the walls. All those open areas will get covered on the outside. This will also make it much easier to mount the cement board siding. One way of bringing the walls up to the same level is to put strips on it like this, but I'd much rather just put full sheets everywhere. Okay, first step was to get all the sheets. I got 13 sheets of tall wall OSB. This stuff is a 1/2 inch thick and measures 4 feet by 10 feet. It's meant for 10-foot walls just like this building. I started with 11 sheets, but ended up having to go get 2 more to finish the job. When I was loading up the sheets at the store, a few good Samaritans asked if I needed help, but I kept reiterating that this is my workout for the day. I'm doing stunts for a TV show soon that I need to look a little bit more muscular for. Let's start popping on the sheets. A bunch of them will have to be ripped down to line up with the studs, but this first one is a full sheet. The left side that butts up to the shear wall doesn't have any room on the stud to nail the edge, so I'll have to add some blocking. I decided to add that blocking after the sheet was mounted. I made a few marks in the foundation with a pencil showing the location of the studs. That way I'd be able to go straight up the line with the nail gun. I figured out that hanging a heavy sheet like this by yourself isn't impossible, but it sure is difficult. The trickiest part is making sure it's in the right spot. It needs to be jammed up into the framing above so it doesn't hang over the foundation at the bottom. And there needs to be a small 1/8 inch expansion gap between the sheets. Once I got the sheet in place, I tacked a few nails so it wouldn't fall. Then I went to town with the nail gun, locking it in place. This next sheet was a bit tricky. Smack dab in the middle is the junction box for the light outside the door. I measured the location of the obstacle, carefully transferred it to the sheet, then cut it out with a jigsaw. I cut the hole slightly bigger to allow for some wiggle room. Because the sheet could rest on the block holding the junction box, putting it in place and nailing it down was super easy. I just made sure it was in the right spot, with a small gap between the sheet next to it. Instead of measuring and cutting the door opening ahead of time, I figured it would be much easier to cut it afterwards. I attempted to use a router with a flush trim bit to do the job, but the bit was old, dull, and exactly 1/2 inch, the same as the wood it was trying to cut. I nixed the router and used a reciprocating saw instead. The last sheet for this side had to be ripped down because the gap was less than 4 feet. I cut the board around the opening the same way as the last. Though I finished off the cut with the router to make it a nice clean edge. On to the other side of the workshop. One by one, I installed the sheathing on the other side of the shop. Some of these boards had to be trimmed down, and some fit perfectly as full sheets. With a bit of elbow grease, all the outside sheets were up. Now, it wasn't quite done because some of the edges are unsupported. You can see here how the sheet of the shear wall covers the entire beam, preventing a neighboring sheet edge from having anywhere to nail to. That's where blocking comes into play. I was meticulous with the block to put it in the right spot, making sure the sheet edge on the outside lined up flush. I hammered some nails through the block to lock it into place. Once the blocks were in, I could use the nail gun to attach the sheet to the blocking. A few of the spots were difficult to use a hammer because there just wasn't enough room to swing. So I went to the store and picked up a compact palm nailer. This thing was great. It's run via an air compressor and really helped drive in these hard to reach spots. The right side of the shop is sheeted and blocked, as is the left side. So the only spot that I still wanted to hit was the rest of the inside wall dividing the guest house from the workshop. I didn't want to add any extra blocking to this wall, so I trimmed down the sheet to cover half of the stud. The next sheet would cover the other half. And just like that, the workshop is just that much closer to being done. Now there aren't any unnecessary open walls, and I can get a feel for what it'll be like inside when I have the sliding barn door and regular door open. Those are my only options for natural light. Since this is just as much a film studio as it is a workshop, I wanted to control all the lighting aspects of it, which means no windows for the workshop. I want to be able to make it pitch black if I so choose. And who knows how I'll want to film something in the future, but this way, I'm not limiting myself. Okay, the next steps are to install the one window for the guest house and the two normal sized entry doors. That's it for now. See ya.